What is up? Good morning and welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. This is Club Fantasy's weekly recap show where we help you decide what you should panic about from yesterday's action and when you just need to chill the fuck out. I am your host, Ryan Weisse, and with me as always, the founder of Club Fantasy, Joshua Hudson. Josh, how you feeling this morning?
Riding high with that 5-0, baby.
I was going to say, when I think about what I'm going to say during the intro, it's always, Josh, how are you doing this morning? But I already know how you're doing because I watched the Eagles game yesterday. So it's a great morning. I guess the real question is, how hungover are you?
Actually, not too bad. There were way too many injuries, especially in the early slate, where I was like, all right, I gotta chill on the high noons right now because I gotta be able to talk about this. And then Taysom Hill did what he did, and I'm like, all right, maybe get a little bit more buzz because I'm going to go fucking ham on this dude.
I feel like we all need to get drunk.
I think we all are drunk. Like, that's what this weekend was. Like, damn.
Will's unhappy to be here like the rest of us. Thanks, Will. We appreciate it, buddy. All right, before we get into Josh talking about the Eagles, I'm going to do the quick recap of yesterday. Fair warning, I don't know what was in my brain today, but I completely did not do this the way I normally do it, so this is going to be a little discombobulated. But if you watch the absolute snooze fest on Thursday, the Colts somehow beat the Broncos 12-9. We don't need to talk anymore about that game because nobody showed up to play in that game. In London, the Giants sneak by the Packers 27-22. And if you didn't watch that game, I recommend going back and watching the fourth quarter. Saquon Barkley came out after halftime, just a man possessed. It was a very, very fun game to watch. And Aaron Rodgers at the end of that game, actually, this should be my head scratcher. Aaron Rodgers at the end of that game throwing balls just into the defense was just absolute terrible. I think we really need to question what we know about Aaron Rodgers right now. Patriots shut out the Detroit Lions 29-0, as if that wasn't weird enough. Or I guess that's the weird part. But then Damien Pierce also went out with a hamstring injury. That's something to keep an eye on. Hamstrings tend to take 1 to 4 weeks for recovery. That's going to make Ramondre Stevenson very important. He's going to come up later in the show. Chargers just barely get by the Browns 30-28. Browns had a field goal lined up at the end of the game. Couldn't knock it down. Some of the worst play calling ever by was it Brandon Staley or whatever for the Chargers? I don't know how much longer that guy's going to be able to keep his job, which goes to Joe and Josh's theory that he's one of the worst coaches in the NFL. Texans beat the Jaguars 13-6 because nothing can ever make any sense in the AFC South. Just not a whole lot to say there. Trevor Lawrence did not look great again. Christian Kirk didn't show up, and somehow the Texans pulled a victory in that game. Buccaneers sneak by the Falcons 21-15. Steelers get smashed by the Buffalo Bills 38-3, and Pat Freiermuth did leave that game with a concussion. Anytime it's a concussion, it could be a long-term injury. That's one you want to keep an eye on. And then we have the Jets beat down the Dolphins, but you wouldn't really be able to tell by anybody's fantasy points in this game. It helps that the Dolphins lost Teddy Bridgewater early in the game to another concussion, something that's obviously going wrong with their quarterbacks right now. And Skylar Thompson.
That offensive line, it's not set up to protect anybody.
I say Skylar Thompson, the 7th-round rookie, wasn't able to keep – I don't even want to say keep pace with the Jets. The Jets just – I mean, Breece Hall looked great. Let me be perfectly clear. But Michael Carter stole some touchdowns. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Vikings beat the Bears 29-22. If you're the Vikings, that's almost embarrassing letting the Bears keep it that close. Do better, Vikings. The Titans beat the Commanders 21-17. Not the big blowout game we expected out of the Commanders with a great offense against the Titans' bad defense. Saints outlast the Seahawks 39-32. I think we all owe the Seahawks a big apology. Just they are far better than we thought they were. Geno Smith far better. Rashad Penny breaks his leg in this game. It is officially Kenneth Walker season. More on that later. 37-15, the 49ers beat down the Panthers, and it really wasn't that close. The Panthers kind of came back late in this game. Baker Mayfield was seen in a walking boot after this game, and if we're being perfectly honest, that's the greatest thing ever that could happen to the Panthers because he looks absolutely terrible right now. I think on the Saints game, I did completely forget Chris Olave went down with a concussion in that game as well. So again, concussion protocol, something to keep an eye on. Eagles just outlast the Cardinals 20-17. More on that later. However, James Conner left with a rib injury, did not return to the game. Cowboys beat the Rams 22-10. Cooper Rush remains undefeated. I don't know. Is there a quarterback controversy? Maybe we talk about that later. And then wonderful game last night, though more defensive than offensive. It was better than the Thursday night stinker. 19-17. The best part of the game was the fourth quarter, and all praise be to Justin Tucker and that fucking golden leg of his, because I watched those kicks and my goodness, this guy is just money. T. Higgins is going to come up later in the show. He was active for the game, immediately re-aggravated the injury.
Actively sit on the bench.
Yeah, immediately re-aggravated the injury, and they immediately sat him back down. And I have questions about the coaching decisions with there. So I think those are all the major injuries from yesterday. But Josh, what were your takeaways of another Philadelphia Eagles victory?
So one of our Women of Fantasy co-host, Kelly Singh, she invited me on to her podcast, the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh, and this is what we were talking about. We were previewing the game. She's a Cardinals fan. This is what her podcast focuses on. Me, obviously, being an Eagles fan. My biggest keys, I said, this game is going to be close. You have one of the best first half teams in the Eagles, who also happen to be one of the worst second half teams, versus one of the worst, if not the worst, first half teams in the Cardinals. But they're also one of the best second half teams. What happened? It came right down to the wire because Philly could not do jack shit in the second half of this football game. It's great that they were able to outlast the Cardinals, which tells me that they have winning DNA. But if they're not going to keep their foot on the gas and make things happen in the second half of games, they're going to start losing sooner than later, because Jonathan Gannon apparently failed the class on how to hold a lead when he went for his coach's exam, because my God, he could not stop a nosebleed with his play calling. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible on the defensive side of the ball. On the flip side, Nick Sirianni was just like, oh, we've got a lead and I trust my guy. We're just going to, run these. I swear to God, they ran 1,000 quarterback sneaks. Yep. Like at a certain point, like let's kind of protect your quarterback. It's okay.
That was my worry watching the game, is they're going to get him killed eventually. So.
Dude, Kenny Gainwell blew so many blocks in pass coverage at the running back position. I wanted to fire him into the sun. It was so bad watching him play running back. So if that's what you needed to see, people, for still rostering Kenny Gainwell, I think it's safe to say we can probably move on from Gainwell. Outside of an injury, that's still Boston Scott's job.
Yeah.
If he's healthy. He is the direct backup to Miles Sanders.
Were you able to dig into what's going on with the Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown kind of split? Because A.J. Brown managers have to be panicking right now, and I actually don't.
I get it. But look, that's just what happens when you go out and you trade for a number one guy, but you still have quality wide receivers around him. Teams are going to realize, you know what? We're going to slow down who we think is the best guy. And then a good offense is going to say, okay, you take out that guy, we're going to kill you other ways. Devonta Smith had a good game. Dallas Goedert, who I said on Wednesday's no pun intended, would be a top 3 tight end. Well, guess what? He's currently tight end 2. And we'll get into why he's 2 and not 3. But that's what this is. That's really all this is. A smart football team isn't going to force feed a playmaker when there's other playmakers around him. And that's what Jalen Hurts right now is doing so incredibly well. Just like most top wide receivers, he's going to have big games. He's going to have not so big games. Don't panic. It is what it is. I've said this all week. The Cardinals are a good football team. And really, this is the best football team the Eagles have played so far this year.
Yeah, so Albert even brought up the wide receiver 2 seems to always go off against the Cardinals. So
there you go. I mean, they're gonna swing some of the safety help over to take away on Byron Murphy's side, which is fine because Byron Murphy is a solid corner, and Budda Baker is one of the better safeties in the NFL.
I was just going to say you're dealing with one of the best safeties in the NFL for safety.
So, and then you're leaving Isaiah Simmons, who's a great athlete, but apparently can't cover tight ends to save his life. And that's where Dallas Goedert's going to wreak havoc, and that's exactly what he did. So from A.J. Brown perspective, I'm not taking anything away from it. From the Eagles perspective, they still have a lot of growing to do just from a coaching perspective. But it's fair to say the players are buying in, and that's what you want from a winning football team, and that's great. But if the play calling and the decision-making in certain instances doesn't get better, you're going to have a Brandon Staley situation in the Chargers where, you're standing with him, but at a certain point, it's like you're going to start questioning everything. So Sirianni and Gannon need to step their game up big time.
Yeah. Let's just talk about the Chargers for a hot second before we get into the next thing, because it's not a part of my notes, but we've seen Brandon Staley make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. We assume, I don't know the Chargers' hierarchy of decision-making, but it all falls on the head coach. At some point, you're going to have to give some of that decision making up, because going forward on 4th and 2 in your own territory against a team that has a good kicker, you were begging the Cleveland Browns to beat you in this football game. Thankfully for the Chargers, Cade York was having an off week, but the decision made absolutely zero sense. Is there any better way to tell your defense, who is a supremely talented defense, I don't fucking trust you at all? Like, what?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, from an offensive play caller, if you're going for it on 4th and short and some of these situations, like, your offense gets juiced, right? Like, it's like, yo, let's go. Like, we're here to play. We don't want these kickers doing our jobs for us. Like, bringing in the kicker tells us that we don't know how to do our job. But getting that call on 4th and 2, 4th and 1, 4th and 7 sometimes, like, you know what? Yeah, we believe you. We believe in you. And you know what? They've got a quarterback that can do it. Mind you, this is the first time I can remember this season that Justin Herbert's thrown less than 300 yards.
Yep.
Like, they were the only NFL team. The Chargers are the only NFL team to average going into this weekend's game that averaged over 300 passing yards. And he threw for, I believe, 224. Not great, Bob. Not great at all. So, like, that should tell you right there. Let's not screw around with this. Let's just punt it. Let's get our defense, like, push them further back. Like, granted, Nick Chubb was running all over this defense.
Fair enough.
Which I get. This team hasn't been great at stopping the run for quite some time. But
that also kills clock if they're going to run the ball. So
exactly. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to run out the clock. So
yeah,
it definitely was very questionable. I love the moxie. I love his willingness to want to go for it, but you have to be able to pick your spots. And that's what he's failing at right now. He's not picking great spots to do it.
Yeah, that's just stupidity, not moxie. All right, new segment. The blackout, because we both know you need to be blackout drunk to believe Taysom Hill is a thing at this point. But you start drinking thinking one thing, you wake up seeing something completely different. Why the fuck is Taysom Hill a thing? Josh, I'll let you get started. I think you're going to hit. Actually, I just see the point. Your first bullet point is my whole point. That's the part that bothers me.
Why is he a tight end? Like, I'm going through, I'm looking at Pro Football Focus right now as they do their snaps by position and their breakdown. We know Taysom Hill plays a lot of special teams, right? So he missed week 3. So over 4 weeks, he's played a total of 101 snaps. 44 of them are on special teams.
Okay. So that's literally 44% of his snaps are as a non-mattering offensive player.
Yeah. From there, he is lined up in line in the actual tight end position a grand total of 16 times. Outside of that, the most snaps he's played at any position is quarterback.
Obviously.
So why is he being like, I get because they're trying to find some like way to, make him fantasy eligible, blah, 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 whatever. He's still a quarterback based on these snaps. Yes, you split him out wide, but you know what? Teams get creative with these Wildcats. How many snaps out wide did Daniel Jones take in London on Sunday morning?
Yeah.
Like, this is just what happens. So for me, he's still a damn quarterback. So why is he a tight end?
At the very least, he's a running back.
Or even a running back. I'll even take that because he lines up. And honestly, this weekend was the first time he's lined up at actual running back in the backfield. And he did so on 6 different occasions.
I think the issue we're running into here is that the Saints have him on their roster as a fucking tight end. And so I guess we're playing by the NFL's rules of what he's rostered at. But I mean, does that mean like all of a sudden Tom Brady could be a tight end? Like if that's the case, he was rostered as a quarterback last year, and yet every fantasy platform still put him as a tight end. Well, that's fair too, yeah. And then
so
there's
it's
Cordero
like,
Patterson.
at this point, it's just like, look, he is a utility player. That's it. You put him in the flex as an
he should only be flex
or a
eligible.
super flex.
Yeah,
that's literally the only way he should be drafted, in my opinion. And it is so annoying, especially because most people aren't going to be starting him. So it's an absolute waste to have him on a roster, because the moment you decide to start him, he's going to have 1 point.
Yep.
He's going to have 1 point. I'm going to read off some rankings here. In PPR scoring, Taysom Hill is tight end 7 through 5 weeks. Now, granted, he missed week 3 with injury. In half PPR, he is tight end 3. In standard scoring, He is tight end 2. You know how many targets he has on the season? 1 target for 1 catch for 2 yards. How in God's name is this possible? Seriously. What are we doing?
And like I said,
why is Pete Carmichael drunk? Like, what is he drinking before every game to say, you know what? I'm going to give all these carries and touchdowns to Taysom fucking Hill instead of Alvin Kamara. Seriously.
So that's where I mildly disagree with you, though. It's working. Like, they're winning football games. He's scoring touchdowns. I mean, given they're 2 and 3, but he's scoring touchdowns. It's working. I don't have an issue with what the Saints are doing with Taysom Hill. It clearly, to me, we saw Saquon Barkley score that touchdown in London out of the Wildcat where he basically walked into the end zone.
But he's an actual running back.
Stop though, but yeah. But we're seeing Hill do it. To me, it's telling teams in goal line, you should be lining up in Wildcat more often. It seems to be wildly fucking successful.
But here's the part that baffles me. He lines up back there at quarterback. Everybody knows what he's doing, and the defense still can't stop him. He's not that fucking good.
Does he even have any pass attempts this season? I haven't looked.
I think yesterday was the first time he actually threw the football.
Okay.
And it just so happened to be a touchdown pass.
Oh, that's right. He threw a touchdown yesterday. What am I saying? Yeah, I forgot about that. So.
Yeah, he had 3 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. It just blows my freaking mind.
Well, originally, I would have had Taysom Hill as my head scratcher, so we're going to go into the hangover now. So these are the biggest head scratchers of the week. Josh, you got to rant on Taysom Hill, so I'm just going to lean into this T. Higgins thing a little bit. I am all about player protection. I am all about player protection. And I have set a rule for my fucking self that if a guy is highly questionable, I don't start him. But for some reason, I and apparently every other T. Higgins manager, if you look at Twitter right now, went against that rule last night and started T. Higgins in a game where he was highly questionable. I haven't seen the snap counts for this game yet, but I really don't care because he re-aggravated his ankle sometime in the first or second quarter, and he still hadn't done anything up to that point. He didn't finish the game with a target. Why fucking play him at all if a simple re-aggravation was going to take a play where you're going to take him out of the game completely? I'm reading the reports that he was asking to come back into the game, and they were overly cautious and didn't want to put him back in the game. Then why the fuck not just make him inactive and solve this headache for so many fantasy managers? It's just bad decisions like that like turn you off to the NFL. Like, this game is supposed to be fun, this game being fantasy, and you're making it so much fucking harder on us. And I know you don't care, but again, if you're going to protect a guy, protect him all the way. If you're coming into a game with an ankle injury that almost kept you out of the game, there's a very good chance you're going to re-aggravate that injury. Just don't risk it at all. Give him the week off. Let him fucking play next week, because technically you're on a short week this week now because you played the Sunday night game. So,
yep.
Very bothersome.
So here's your snap counts. Jamar Chase, 63. Tyler Boyd, 61. T. Higgins, 10.
10. So that means he didn't get out of the first quarter. I didn't pay attention to the entire game. I just know
Mike Thomas played 45, and then the next closest was Stanley Morgan at 8, who, by the way, saw a shovel pass on 4th and goal, which still baffles my mind.
Well, look, Josh, I don't know what sounder strategy you need than involving your 5th wide receiver who shouldn't have been involved in the game.
Stanley Morgan, that's your financial advisor. That's
fair. Well, that's where Joe Burrow needed those stock tips, so he was trying to help him find the end zone. Yeah, that was some bad stuff too. All right, Josh, go ahead with some of your heads.
I'm just trying to figure out, are the Packers good?
Yeah, Joel, are the Packers good? What's going
seriously,
on, man?
Are the Packers good? Like, I'm so confused by this team. Like, they could barely put away a Patriots offense that was working with their 3rd string quarterback. And then you go into London, which I get it, time change differences, jet lag, but they're there all week. Yep. By game time, I feel like most people, and I'll stress most because not everybody adjusts to, the time difference evenly. But there was a point in this game where before that safety, which I don't even count as, them scoring points, they scored 17 unanswered points in the second half of this game. Like, that's the Giants' offense is not good. It is literally Barkley or bust. And Barkley left for a period of time due to a shoulder injury. And they still could not get going against the defense that was missing their number one run stopper. Like, it just absolutely baffles me how incompetent the coaching is with the Packers. And I've been saying this for a few years. Like, there you go, Joel, our resident Packers fan. Suboptimal coaching. Perfectly well said.
To be kind.
Like, Matt LaFleur has gotten by on wins because of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. They've built this defense up to where it's supposed to be able to shut down teams as they transition on offense to a more run first. We're just going to pick our spots with our young receivers. And I get it. There's going to be growing pains with those guys. Aaron Rodgers overthrowing Dobbs on a post route deep. Like, I'm like, okay. Even Devontae Adams wouldn't have caught that because Devontae is not as fast. Like, I just, what's going on here? But Christian Watson, I know, left the game a little early. Randall Cobb apparently thought it was 2014 with the way he was playing. But A.J. Dillon couldn't get going. And again, the Giants were missing their number one defensive tackle in Leonard Williams was out this game. Yep. But they were bringing pressure that I have not seen from a Giants team
it was crazy.
In 10 years.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're getting out-coached by the New York Giants.
I was going to say the broadcast team was in on Wink Martindale, just giving him all of the credit in the entire world during that broadcast.
Yeah. So. I'm not convinced I still don't think the Giants are a true 4-1 team, but they're starting to convince me with the way they beat the Packers. I right now, I don't know if Green Bay could even go in and beat Minnesota.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think,
and that's me giving the benefit of the doubt to Kirk Cousins. Now, granted, if the game is on Monday night, time. Green Bay's got it. But still, like, I'm so confused by this team right now. Like, they don't know what they're doing running the football, which I thought that's what they were supposed to do well.
Yep.
I knew they were going to have growing pains in the passing game. Like, I figured that much when you're deciding to play two starting wide receivers, or two rookie wide receivers. But nothing else is going right for this team right now. I'm thrown off by it. I really don't know what's going on with the Packers.
I'm going to assume that Elixirs means Gabe Davis, and it probably was bad advice from us. But I will say that your sacrifice let the world live, because he only did what he did because he was on your bench, Elixirs. It's a good thing you started Younghoe Koo in his 1 point this week. No, the one thing I wanted to get into about the running, I do want to talk about the running backs. I was going to go off on a tangent about that, but I was just going to leave that to game script and not talk about it much. But you kind of hit it on the head. Like, what are they doing? Like, you had two running backs go over basically 5 yards a carry, and then you have two great pass catching running backs. They only saw 3 targets the entire game, and they only had 19 carries the entire game. In a very close game, you could have just run this clock the entire time, but instead you throw the ball 39 times with Rogers. But the part that bothers me, and I want to go back and look at some good tape of that last pass. Rogers got batted balls to end that game, just flat out. And we've seen a lot of weird shit with these elite quarterbacks to end games recently, because we saw Tom Brady come fucking blow that delay a game that ended up costing them the game, I believe. But Rogers threw the one into Kayvon Thibodeau's face mask, like literally just pelted him in the face with that ball on what was probably a touchdown pass. But on that last play where he threw into the blitz, which I understand works 9 times out of 10 if you make the right pass, it never looked like he knew he was getting that ball by the blitz. But way more importantly, I don't know if it was Tunyon or another tight end over there. They didn't look open to me at all. Like, I'm pretty sure that ball is picked or knocked down, even if it's not done that way. And it's just very bothersome to end a game that way, because I believe it was 3rd and 2 and then 4th and 2. And you have A.J. Dillon, who's like 265 pounds or whatever. Just give this motherfucker the ball and let him fall forward twice. Like, yeah,
I don't get it. Like, Rodgers has always played with an attitude that really makes you question whether he wants to be doing this. But like, I'm really starting to see it over these last couple of years.
And I'm going to go back to
year,
something
like bringing
Joel
in
said.
the rookies and everything. Like, I don't. Yeah, he's
I
like, I got my $50 million a year. I'm good.
And you're kind of hitting on that here, because like Joel brought up, we don't quite know what LaFleur is calling and what Rodgers is doing with those calls. And so this, again, Aaron Rodgers, elite quarterback. I just don't know that it's still there. And I think we're finally starting to see Father Time catch up with Rodgers and even Tom Brady, who hasn't looked all that great.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my next point. Can we stop protecting Tom Brady?
Yeah.
That roughing the passer call when Brady Jarrett sacked him towards the end of that game, that was one of the most bullshit roughing the passer calls I have seen in a long time. Like, you could tell, like, he was swinging him down and he let up. Like, he didn't throw him full force the way that Tua got slammed into the ground by the player on the Bengals. Like, so, I mean, if you're trying to use that as the narrative as to why you made that call, I guess I get it. But in no way, shape, or form was Tom Brady suffering severe whiplash. Like, we need to stop. Like, he's the one that chose to play this game at 45 years old. If you think you're going to break a quote-unquote old man, then maybe that old man shouldn't be playing football.
Yeah, he should be
just
working
where
on his
I'm
family.
at, because this, I don't get it. Because that I'm not saying that the Falcons would have come back to win this game, but you basically said now you don't have a chance to come back and win this game. Because that was terrible play refereeing. Absolutely terrible.
The only thing I don't know, and this is something maybe worth going back. I saw a fight happening about this on Twitter or Facebook or one of the places, and they said that the roughing the passer call was a blatant makeup call for a uncalled pass interference on the play before. So that's my only question: was it a makeup call, which refs occasionally do? So
I mean,
but the optics still look terrible.
That could have went either way. But I mean, how do you know you're getting that play the very next play? You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah.
So like, that's where I don't, and plus it's a completely different official making that call.
That's fair too.
So I don't buy that narrative at all. I don't.
Perfect. I'm just going to quickly throw myself under the bus here because I was definitely in on this guy last year, but I had cooled a little bit. And I don't understand the fantasy world's infatuation with Terry McLaurin anymore. We're looking at a 57% catch rate. He was 59% last year. It's getting worse like every year of his career. He doesn't really score touchdowns. He scored 7 in his rookie year. And I understand we can like blame the quarterback play, but like this season, we've seen Curtis Samuel play very good football. We've seen Jahan Dotson find the end zone 4 times. And maybe it's McLaurin taking all the number 1 corners away from them. I don't know that it's that or not that. But the fact of the matter is this: we keep saying, it's going to be next year as soon as he gets a good quarterback, this, that, and the other. But they're getting damn good quarterback play right now, and he's still not doing it. And way more importantly, this kind of shocked me when I was looking it up. I think we've seen him for so long, but I still thought he was young. Terry McLaurin turned 27 years old.
Yeah, he was an older rookie when he came in.
And so we're talking about the wide receiver 31, and it was 2 years ago I was hyper in on him, and then I've started to cool since then, and I've tried to tell people, I think he's a wide receiver 2 with a wide receiver 1 ceiling. He's really starting to feel like a low-end wide receiver 2 that might give you a boom week every now and then. And I was someone who 2 weeks ago was like actively trying to buy Terry McLaurin. I'm like, he's going to pop. He's going to pop. I am hands off at this point. This was the week to get Terry McLaurin. Like, I mean, this is what you wanted. It was this matchup. And I'm trying to confirm what Joel just put into the chat. Okay. I trust Joel, so I'm going to break it now while you confirm it. But it looks like the Carolina Panthers have moved on from Matt Rule. I wouldn't expect a whole lot out of that unless they also fired whoever the fuck their offensive coordinator is, because I can't think of his name right now. But
yeah, all right. So this is literally from the Panthers Twitter handle. Panthers part ways with head coach Matt Rule.
So there you go. So maybe we see a little bit of improvement there. I was going to bring this up later in the show before we get into your final head scratcher, Josh. But does Sam Darnold take this job? Baker Mayfield looks bad. I've never seen happy feet like I see on Baker Mayfield right now. And I don't know that it necessarily improves when Sam Darnold comes back.
No, it's not. But Sam Darnold's a lot more willing to sling it.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to stand in there. He's going to throw it. And that's going to give McCaffrey a chance. It's going to give DJ Moore a chance. And that's what you want. Like, Baker's just so worried about, my guy needs to be absolutely wide open to throw it to him. But like you said, his footwork is an absolute mess right now. And I get it, because the offensive line is not great.
Yeah, it's terrifying watching him throw. He literally is pitter pattering and moving the entire time. Like it's so fucking weird. All right,
I
Josh,
mean,
what's your-
that from that perspective is not going to get much better with Sam Darnold. But again, Darnold has no issue throwing it into tight coverage,
and we saw
he
that
has
last
that
year.
sort of gunslinger mentality. Yeah,
Yep.
so not that
All
worried
right.
about it. My last point, and I'll kind of piggyback off the Terry McLaurin thing. Like, if you're the Commanders, you're 1-4. You're super hyped about Brian Robinson, which, by the way, that intro bringing him in yesterday was absolute gold. The 50 Cent song, Many Men, like I was high. I'm singing along with this song, and I'm like, oh damn, dude, 20 years ago when that album dropped was money. I freaking loved it. But why not just move on from Antonio Gibson? Like, just trade him, get a draft piece, because you're not a good football team at all. You've put so much money and spent so much draft capital into this defensive line, and it literally means nothing because the rest of the team sucks. Like, you need to be able to get pieces right now that are going to allow you to potentially move up into the draft to actually get the quarterback that can save this franchise. Because it's not Carson Wentz. As much as Sam Howell had some decent traits coming out of college, I don't think you're going to hand the reins to a 5th-round quarterback. Not saying it can't happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I think at a certain point, you do need to play him this year if you continue to lose.
Have to.
Because, I mean, what else is there to see from Carson Wentz? If he's not winning you games, it's a sunk cost. Like, just cut him, move on, do whatever it is you got to do. But, like, just trade Gibson right now. Like, he had 3 carries.
So
3 carries yesterday.
Here's my only concern.
I don't care.
All that positive that Antonio Gibson is as good as the fantasy.
No, I'm not.
world.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying I'm not saying he's a bell cow running back. Those words have never come out of my mouth at all. But I will say he has shown that he could potentially be that. He's had the 200 plus carries. You know, we know that he has skill as a pass catcher. I'm not saying he's a world beater as a receiving option.
I'm glad you said that, because that seems to be the narrative is
because he quote unquote played receiver in college,
but he didn't.
Yeah.
And that is my problem with the whole Antonio Gibson narrative is we really want him to be a thing. And I understand he was called, CMC light, and you have blatantly in your notes. It's not that. The guy touched the ball, I think it was 45 times in college, like 45 total times in college. Elite players at, Kentucky, you touch the ball more than that. So I think we may be overblowing
Memphis.
My apologies. Yeah, I knew it was one of those damn teams. Especially at schools like Memphis, if you're elite, you're going to touch the ball a lot more than 45 times. I think we fell in love with Antonio Gibson after a very good season, like we've never seen a very good season before as a fantasy community, myself included. So
yeah, but my point still stands. If you can move him. Be done with it.
No, 100%. Not taken away from your point at all. It's
mostly because I want an opportunity to finally trade him.
There you go.
And somebody's going to be like, oh, new lease on life. Give me all the shares.
Yes, that's me too. In a league I'm in with you, so you won't be buying. All right, we're going to get into our shot of espresso quality performances that we were happy to see. I touched on this earlier, Josh, and I actually just want to more talk about your facial expression. So I have Gabe Davis, and I know he only caught 3 balls, but 2 of them were very deep passes, which is exactly what we want to get out of Gabe Davis. So I'm just happy to see the Bills hopefully give Gabe Davis a new lease on life. But when I brought up Gabe Davis earlier, you immediately rolled your eyes. So you're not buying into the resurgence of Gabe Davis?
This is Gabe. This is literally his
100%.
Game. He's not going to have a high target share. He's not going to see a lot of catches, and he's going to get big chunk yards. I've been preaching this all off season. If you want Gabe Davis in best ball, go get him, because he is an absolute home run in best ball. Because the weeks when he does nothing
shouldn't hurt you as bad.
It's not going to hurt you, but weeks like this, you're going to win because you're going to rack up those points. Like I'm sitting at the restaurant, the bar yesterday, and the table next to me is a Bills fan, and that recovery in the end zone where they tried to bring it out and they, basically stopped him at the 2-yard line. And I'm like, I looked over, I'm like, yeah, what's a 75-yard bomb to Gabe Davis when you could do a 98-yard bomb to Gabe Davis? And boom, literally the next play, it's a 98-yard bomb to Gabe Davis.
I hope they bought you a drink after that.
I'm just like, this offense, like Josh Allen's big arm is quite literally built for Gabe Davis. But we're not going to see these types of games very often.
See, I just wonder if they're going to update the play calling a little bit, but I'm still going to agree with you that you're not going to see it very often. But I think October could be a nice month for Gabe Davis while the weather is still playing fair in Buffalo. When the weather turns in Buffalo, you're absolutely right. We're not going to be able to see a lot of that. Go ahead and get into some of your
I'm going to try to make these quick. Austin Ekeler, we kind of talked about it last week. He had 3 touchdowns. Guess what? 2 more this week. And more importantly, 173 rushing yards. Woo. That, like, I missed on my receiving prop, but I blame Joshua Kelly on that one because his one catch for 22 yards that could have, should have, would have went to Austin Ekeler. Would have hit my player prop. But you know what? I'll take the 173 rushing yards. I think it's safe to say you can rely on Austin Ekeler. Like, let's throw this narrative out really quick.
Yeah.
I'll run down quickly. Breece Hall, money. Like, this is what you want to see when you drafted this guy, when you spent that, 101 in rookie drafts and dynasty. Like, this is it. To me, he is a safe, like, top 15 play every single week, and he's going to have these RB1 weeks. I'm not ready yet to say he's a bona fide like RB1. I think he'll probably end the season there because the running back position is just
awful.
Been dog shit this year, but 97 rushing yards and a touchdown, 100 receiving yards. Like, he absolutely went off against a depleted Dolphins defense. And I want to stress depleted. Again, this is why I kind of think he's more of an RB2 with that upside, because again, they're not playing at full strength. But this is the usage that you want to see. The 18 carries, the 2 catches, like, bring it 100%. And my last point, I was way off on this guy simply because all he ever does is get hurt. I never once questioned the talent. It's always been hurt. So when's Raheem Mostert going to get hurt so I can cash in my Chase Edmonds shares?
Yeah. And so I can get this.
Chase Edmonds had 1 freaking carry yesterday. 1. The whole entire game was Raheem Mostert. And he did what he did. 18 carries, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Like, that is what Raheem Mostert is capable of doing every single time he touches the ball. Even at 29 years old, 30 years old, whatever he is, he's got juice. He's one of the fastest players in the NFL. Like,
I told so many people to
he's
drop
an RB2 right now.
I told so many people to drop him this week when they were asking about lineup questions. And so I owe many apologies. I still just, I don't understand it. I'm going to quickly.
Not a glowing recommendation for our sponsor coming up.
Yeah. It was some bad advice. It happens. But one guy I was on this week, Tyler Lockett. Geno Smith looks good. And Lockett is the wide receiver 7 in fantasy right now. 40 targets through 5 games and just a hell of a touchdown catch. If you didn't see that touchdown catch, go back and watch that touchdown catch. But Tyler Lockett is looking very good. This offense is far better than advertised. And Tyler Lockett's a guy that you should be looking to acquire. I think he's an every week start from this point forward. So I'm all aboard. It was great to see another good game out of him. So the morning mimosa, just that tingly feeling that something great is coming. Josh, you have some interesting names on this list. I don't understand the first one, but let's go with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bailey Zappi with the Patriots, man. Look, you can't put him and Mac Jones next to each other and not see the same person. I'm sorry. The only difference is Zappi can actually throw the football.
Yeah, and you paid a lot less for
like one. I know Mac Jones is gonna, regain the starting spot, but he's a game manager. That's what he is. Zappi is exciting. When I watch this kid play, he is fun to watch. And that's what you get when you play at Western Kentucky. You got free reign to do whatever the fuck you want and sling it, baby.
Yep.
And that's what he did. So, yeah, give me all the Zappi QB1 talk with the Patriots. I'm all here for it. Staying with the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, 161 rushing yards. And, oh, by the way, Damian Harris left this game with an injury. If he misses multiple weeks, Ramondre Stevenson is a RB1 in fantasy. This dude has insane feet.
It's a hamstring, so you should expect Harris out next week for sure. So
yeah, give me all the Ramondre Stevenson. I fired him up in so many leagues, and Dude, you guys know, everybody knows how much I love Deontay Johnson. I benched Deontay Johnson to get Ramondre Stevenson, and that was with knowing Damian Harris was playing. Like, I'm all on board Ramondre Stevenson. I'll quickly go through these last two because they're rookies, and I just love them. Khalil Shakir.
Yes.
Jamison Crowder ruled out. Isaiah McKenzie, a late scratch. I remember our friend Sam Holt posted, oh, it's Gabe Davis week, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, it's Khalil Shakir week. Guess what? They had the exact same amount of catches. I just want to point that out.
Well, both can be right.
Both can be right. Exactly. 3 for 75 and touchdown. He did have a very bad drop, but let's just be clear here. Jamison Crowder, not great. I'm sorry. Traveling vet, bounces around from teams. If he can easily get outplayed. McKenzie, they've been waiting for this guy to be like the next big thing forever. Not it. I'm sorry. I think he's okay, but keep him on special teams. Shakir can be the slot guy in this offense between Diggs and Davis, and there's some fantasy relevance there with a team that throws as much as they do. And lastly, I'm going to go Ken Walker. Look, we talked about Rashad Penny breaking his leg. RIP. I literally tweeted out, I'm like, I love Rashad Penny. I think he's so talented. And then he gets hurt, and I'm like, all right, I'm done talking about players today because everybody keeps getting hurt.
Yeah.
69-yard touchdown run against a really good Saints run defense.
He looked good.
And this Saints offense, like, they're fun. Like, we've talked about it. Like, Geno's clicking. Like, heading into this weekend, like, Geno was PFF's highest graded quarterback, excuse me. I don't know where these grades come from, but, like, Geno Smith is playing really well. And you get a good dynamic running back behind. I know they're not going to throw him passes. Like, I know we want to believe that, but that's just not in their DNA. They're not going to do it. They're going to throw to DJ Dallas or Travis Homer or whoever the next running back is. But Ken Walker is going to get those touches. That's RB2 material right there.
Absolutely. I'll run through mine quickly. If you watched the game last night, Devin Duvernay was being used everywhere at running back, in the slot, all over the offense. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I actually said this on a show with IBT Media. I think he fits what the Ravens want to do on offense better than Rashad Bateman. He is not more talented than Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman is a far better talent than Devin Duvernay. But with this underneath dink and dunk, with giving Lamar time to make quick decisions, either with his arm or his legs, I think Duvernay might be the wide receiver to roster for the Ravens for the rest of the season. So I think it's going to be a very fun season for Devin Duvernay. Michael Gallup, 8 targets in the first 2 games. He's back, and I think it's going to get better when Dak Prescott is back. We saw 5 targets out of him this week. He's being more involved, and this is still with a kind of like slowed down offense with Cooper Rush. I understand we all love Cooper Rush, and they continue to win games, but it's still a better offense when Dak Prescott is in there. And then my last one, this is a ways off, and you almost have to have an IR spot for this, but if Jameson Williams is out there, you have to look at this Detroit offense and understand that this is a better offense than you expected it to be. And when they are ready to put Jameson Williams out there, he is going to pop. The deep receivers on this offense, DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds, are keeping the seat warm for him. They have 90 fantasy points in 8 games right now this season. That's basically 7 to 8 fantasy points a game. Williams is likely to return around week 9 or 10. They said it's not going to be after the bye week, but he is only 22% rostered in ESPN leagues. I think Jameson Williams can come in and make an immediate impact just with his speed and his ability of what he can do with the deep ball. They knew what they were doing when they drafted him in the first round of the NFL draft. You want Jameson Williams on your fantasy team when he comes back. So keep an eye out.
And these rookie wide receivers have been playing really well this year. And there was an argument to be made that Jameson Williams was the best of all of them.
That's some people had him as their 1. So when he comes back with Amon-Ra St. Brown and TJ Hawkinson taking over the middle and the underneath, it's opening things up for subpar wide receivers. Josh Reynolds is a solid player. He is not Jameson Williams type talent. They're not even the same kind of player. Nobody on that team right now is as fast as Jameson Williams. And so I think it could be fun, but you are doing this early, and that's why I'm recommending it now with an IR spot, but they're on bye next week, so nobody's going to be going after him. He should be a flat-out free agent if you're in one of those 78% of leagues that he's available. Josh, cream or sugar? Buy low, sell high. Let's talk about him.
For me, the cream is Geno. I mean, we've been talking about it.
Let's knock out let's knock out the questions first. And Elixirs, I just wanted to get you up on screen. It's not even a question. That's what this show is all about, is panicking and freaking the fuck out. And it sucks when you make a legitimate trade offer of Kamara and Marquise Brown for JT and Renfro, and then they respond with, well, I'll give you Renfro for Marquise Brown. Like, that was the fucking trade you were trying to make. It's not, you weren't going after Hunter Renfro. You were going after Jonathan Taylor. So I get it, man. I hate when shit like that happens. But far more importantly, Josh, is Damien Pierce for real? Is Najee Harris that bad?
Here's a fun stat from Pro Football Focus. Damien Pierce forced 17 missed tackles yesterday. 17. That is the most ever that PFF has recorded in a single game. Wow. 17 forced missed tackles. Now, that also goes to show how not great the Houston Texans offensive line is, but he's gaining yards after those forced missed tackles. I'm buying in, and I'm kind of upset that I didn't do it sooner, because I definitely would have a lot more of him in Dynasty if I did. But I want Pierce over Najee, and I don't think that's I was going to say, I don't think that's really a hot take right now.
I don't even know what the second piece I would need to make this trade would be, but it would have to be a damn good wide receiver.
It would have to be a starting wide receiver for me.
Yep.
It would have to be a starting wide receiver for me to take on Najee to give up Pierce. And I don't even think that would get it done.
I was just saying, I don't know what it would be, because what they're going to offer you is like DJ Moore. And it's like, I don't want your two failed pieces for a guy who's out here just handling business for the Houston Texans. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, Josh, let's get into our buy low, sell high, since it fits the segment.
I'll keep it simple with Gino, because we've talked a lot about the Seahawks today. But I mean, the dude he's legit. I don't know if this is going to continue all season, but I'm riding the wave right now. You know, he has two really good wide receivers. Like, that was never the question. It really wasn't. Ken Walker is going to be a test. If Ken Walker isn't the guy that we thought he is or should be, then I think Gino maybe comes back down to earth a little bit, because teams don't have to respect the run the way they did with Rashad Penny. But he's playing really well, and right now I want a piece of it. Like, I just picked him up in a 1 QB dynasty league because I have an extra spot, and right now Russell Wilson's killing me.
I picked him up in a 1 QB redraft league because
I got him for $0 fab.
Yeah, exactly.
I got him for $0 fab.
I think I got him in free agency. I didn't even have to fab him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I nabbed him off free agency literally this week. And I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't start him against the Saints when Russ, shit the bed against the Colts on Thursday night. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, give me all the Geno Smith. But I'm gonna stay on the cream side. Give me Travis Etienne. We've kind of talked about this, like the snap share and the balance between him and J-Rob. It was favoring Robinson, especially in the blowout games. But it's starting to even out a little bit. And you see the juice. J-Rob, 2.7 yards per carry against the worst rush defense in the league. Travis Etienne, 7.1 yards per carry. Same amount of carries, 10 carries. Etienne just has more juice. Like, I'm a huge J-Rob fan. I want to root for the guy. Etienne is better. I'm sorry. He's just better. And it's only a matter of time before Doug Peterson takes the shackles off and just says, have at it, homie. And that time is coming.
And his usage in the passing game is something.
Exactly. And that's where they're using him over James Robinson. I mean, just looking at, I'm going to pull up the snap counts really quick. Like, J-Rob had 30 snaps to Etienne's 40. That was yesterday. Yeah. So you're talking 11.4. Wait, hang on. Let me change that scoring really quick. 14.4 fantasy points for Etienne, 5.9 for J-Rob.
Yeah, it's
like
bad.
If there's a fantasy manager out there that still is not buying into Travis Etienne, go and get him right now. Like, last week was really the week to go get him.
Yeah, because it's gonna be a little harder now.
It might be a little harder now, seeing as how, Etienne,
and I saw it moved a lot last week. So you're absolutely right. That last week was probably the time. Yeah.
And then my last one, I think it's time to bail on Alvin Kamara. And I think now is the right week to do it. Like, we saw vintage Kamara, but if they're going to keep Taysom Hill involved in this offense, I'm tired of ranting about it. I went on for about 10 minutes early in the show. But if Kamara is not getting touchdowns, you're not going to see a lot of these types of games that we saw from him. Like, he's not going to have the 20 carries for over 100 yards. He's not going to have 15 fantasy points through the air every single week. Because keep in mind, too, no Michael Thomas this week, no Jarvis Landry this week. They still don't have a true tight end worth throwing to.
No.
And Chris Olave left early with a head injury. So Kamara was literally it. Now, I don't know how in and out of the lineup Thomas and Landry are going to be. These are older wide receivers, and this could very well be a theme going into the season. But you bank on touchdowns. Like, it's very rare that these guys continue to stay afloat 20 points per game without scoring touchdowns. And if Taysom Hill is the one that's getting all these touchdowns, Kamara is not going to have that top 5 ceiling that you drafted him for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For me, I have Jeff Wilson as sugar. It's going to fall. The fact of the matter is this: the San Francisco 49ers are not going to just use one running back. And right now he is seeing all of the carries, but we're a week, maybe 2 away from Eli Mitchell coming back. Tyrion Davis-Price was getting some run there for a little bit. They're going to use everybody, and it's fun to ride Jeff Wilson right now. But the thing that I'm noticing is there's no Elijah Mitchell coming back narrative around Jeff Wilson right now, which is why I think you have this like weird sell window where people see the stats and you may be able just to sell him on the back of what he's done recently with all these carries. But Josh, you even brought up, or you're going to bring it up later, about like Tevin Coleman stealing all the touchdowns. Like
I didn't even know he was on San Francisco.
But
I
even more importantly,
forgot they brought him back.
I say even more importantly, people are going to be like, oh, think about how much better Jeff Wilson's day could have been if Tevin Campbell didn't do that. Well, the nature of this backfield is it's going to keep happening. Yep. And then when those carry, he's still not all that involved in the passing game. And then when those carries start splitting with Eli Mitchell and eventually going all the way back to Eli Mitchell, you're going to be mad you didn't move Jeff Wilson when you did. And this is not a popular narrative, but I am buying DJ Moore right now.
Well, especially now with rules.
I was going to say the head coaching change actually probably hurts this because now they all the DJ Moore managers are going to have hope again. But if you just go back and watch his catches, and it won't take you that long because he doesn't have that many. He is so good with the ball in his hands. The offense is just so bad. And the phrase, the cream rises to the top, is what we're talking about in this segment. And it's about DJ Moore. It's this situation. And if Sam Darnold is back, you're going to be happy you went out and acquired DJ Moore. I know it's rough right now, but you're not going to get DJ Moore any cheaper. And I promise you things are going to get better, be it with Baker Mayfield finally waking up or losing his job to Sam Darnold. I want a piece of DJ Moore. And I think, like I said, the head coach getting fired this morning might make it a little bit harder on you. So go get DJ Moore.
Agreed.
And the final segment of the show before we get into the housekeeping at the end, but the final segment of the show is the inspiration of the show. And it's time just to chill the fuck out, whether a player is not as good as they looked yesterday or not as bad as they looked yesterday. Josh, who do people need to chill the fuck out on?
Yeah, I'll start with AJ Brown just because, we harped on it a little bit with the Eagles segment up top. Don't panic. I mean, Philly plays Dallas this coming week, Sunday night. It's going to be a good game. 5-0, 4-1. And Dallas has played really good defense. Like, if Jordan Mailata doesn't come back at left tackle, it really makes me worry for Jalen Hurts. But let's just stop and remember for a second. Trayvon Diggs got burned by Tutu Atwell. Tutu Atwell,
who I thought was like 5'4". I had to go.
Tutu Atwell burned Trayvon Diggs. AJ Brown is not only big, but he is fast. Trayvon Diggs doesn't stand a chance against AJ Brown if they're going to go man-to-man on him. I'm sorry. It's just not going to work. And that's coming from somebody that is actually starting to respect Trayvon Diggs because he has played better this year. Like, we made fun of him last year because he was both the best and the worst corner in the league, having the most interceptions and then, allowing the most yards in coverage. But this game is all going to come down to pass rush for both sides because Dallas's offensive line has been suspect. Eagles can get after the quarterback. Eagles are hurting at left tackle with Mailata out. We know about Micah Parsons. We know Dexter Lawrence. These guys can get after it. So it's basically going to come down to who has the better pass rush, in my opinion, when it comes to this game. But don't freak out about AJ Brown. He's going to be fine. Tevin Coleman, you brought it up with Jeff Wilson. He's the Taysom Hill of San Francisco right now. Just forget about it. Look, crazy shit. Week 5 was drunk. That's what we specialize in with Hangxiety.
And also, don't forget, Kyle Shanahan has a man crush on Tevin Coleman. So.
Yeah, it's just these guys that have been in this system. He was the guy in Atlanta for a few years. Follows him to San Francisco. Tevin Coleman lands in the Jets when Mike LaFleur becomes the offensive coordinator who coached under Shanahan. And now after he got released, he goes back. Like, it's just been a bounce back and forth. This is his system. Don't read too much into it. And just like you said with Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds, this is now 2 great weeks. No GJ Chark. Amon-Ra missed last week. He was pretty well neutralized this week. We know his rapport with Jared Goff going back to their time with the Rams. I'm not getting too ahead of myself here simply because we know Jameson Williams is on the horizon. But as long as DJ Chark is out and Jameson Williams is out, yes, you can keep riding this wave, but it's not going to last very long is the point that I'm getting at.
Perfect. Well, I'm just going to piggyback on your Amon-Ra St. Brown. The New England defense is better than you think it is, so just chill the fuck out on ARSB. I'm seeing him go on multiple trade baits right now, and I'm like, you guys need to stop. Like, remember how good he was for 4 weeks. Don't freak out about an injury at this point. So this might be your best buy window on Amon-Ra St. Brown because they have a week 6 buy. So in redraft leagues, not so much dynasty leagues, but in redraft leagues, that manager could be hurting. So I would say put offers out for Amon-Ra St. Brown and don't be afraid to insult that manager. You might be able to get something faster than you thought you could. We touched on this. Michael Carter, completely not buying into any of this. The 50-50 red zone split is the only reason you know who Michael Carter is right now, because this is Breece Hall's team. Breece Hall looks like the truth. Michael Carter is not going to score 2 touchdowns every week. The Jets aren't going to score 2 touchdowns every week, but I do have to say, our buddy Michael said, how about them Jets? And it was a hell of a game. Like I said, the funny thing about that game is if you go look at the stat sheet, specifically Zach Wilson, you would not have expected the Jets to have dropped 40 fucking points this week with Zach Wilson not throwing for a single touchdown, but he did run one in. So nothing against the Jets, but Michael Carter.
But you know what, though? When teams are in a position to win the games they should, and Miami's playing with their third string quarterback and depleted defense, they won the game. And that's what you want to see from a upward swing from a bad team. Unlike Jacksonville, who should have manhandled Houston, that's what you wanted to see from the Jets, not what you wanted to see from Jacksonville. So kudos to your Jets, Michael.
Yep, 100%. And then the last one I want to throw out is Mike Boone. I saw a lot of people really hyped it. I think it was like 8 yards a carry or something that Mike Boone had. But never forget the very first thing the Broncos did when they lost Javonte Williams was go get Latavius Murray, and Latavius Murray did not play in this game. And I understand Latavius Murray is a walking corpse, but Mike Boone is also not good. And we saw Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams struggle for the most part this season. You've already spent too much fab on Mike Boone. Don't compound this by finding ways to get him into your starting lineup. This was a 1-week thing, and if you can move Mike Boone, please, for the love of God, move Mike Boone. Like it's not. He's not Javonte Williams 2.0. It's not how it's going to play out. Michael wonders, Josh, is it time to just go ahead and start firing Geno Smith up as his starting quarterback? So.
1,000%, yes. 1,000%. Like I said, I'm in. I'm buying it. You know, but I'm not saying like go drop Jared Goff for him unless like your benches are so thin and you absolutely need a quarterback. Then yeah, go for it because Goff's on a bye this week. But like, if there's a way that, I mean, I have Geno and Goff in quite a few leagues. Most of them are like dynasty, like super flex ones that I took over, and I just needed a quarterback. So I grabbed them off waivers or, you know, traded minimal for them. But like, it's okay to have both these guys.
I'll tell you a guy that these guys I would drop for him, Josh. And you and I talked about this a little bit before the show. Maybe you try to sell him if there's a buying market, but I am not sold that Carson Wentz survives this season, either as the starting quarterback because they're struggling or because their offensive line is literally going to get this man killed. So if I'm choosing between Geno Smith and Carson Wentz, which is probably a decision a lot of streaming quarterback players are making right now, choosing Geno Smith every single time. And then our buddy Elixirs would like to know what in the hell is going on with Joe Mixon and how has he not scored a touchdown in 5 weeks, Josh?
I got nothing.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I found it very interesting that Samaje Perine is owning the 2-minute drill right now.
Well, that's not surprising because they've basically said that Mixon's not a third down back. Like he's going to have some pass catches, but in 2-minute time, when it's obvious passing downs, it's typically Samaje Perine that's out there. And this has been a thing now for 2+ years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was as bad.
So I don't know why we're so surprised. Like we know that Joe Mixon knows how to catch the football, but you know, this is just a matter of they paid the guy and they want to protect him. or maybe he's just not as good in pass protection.
He's at 27 targets. He does have 1 touchdown this season, but the 3.1 yards per carry. I think your issue is the offensive line, and it's hilarious because we gave them so much credit for improving that offensive line, but we still see Joe Burrow running for his life, and we're seeing Joe make
time to gel.
3.1.
I mean, there were some plays yesterday where I'm just seeing like the guys like delayed blitzes up the middle, and the offensive line isn't even looking there. And I'm just like, well, that's a line that has
nobody knows whose assignment is what.
Yeah, so they don't know whose assignment is what, and they haven't spent enough time next to each other. I harped on this earlier this season. It's the same thing that happened with Kansas City after they got blown out by the Bucs in the Super Bowl. They made sweeping changes on their offensive line. For the first half of the season, the offensive line was dog shit. Towards the end of the year, it got better because they were playing more together. They learned each other's tendencies and each other's assignments within the blocking scheme. That's it. It's going to take time. I'm not overly panicking yet, but the reigning AFC champions are now 2-3. So it might be time to start panicking.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Definitely not pretty. All right. Deep Waivers brought to you by Connect Go. First and foremost, if you are not familiar with Connect Go, check the links in the description. It is an app available on Apple and Android. And what it lets you do is partner with some of your favorite fantasy analysts for one-on-one advice. And for a small fee, you're able to set up text chats or even video calls with me, Nate Markham, Jorge Edwards, Stepmom Lauren, Chris Robin. I can name a bunch of names, but the fact of the matter is this: if you like them, they're probably on this app. And what we're able to do is set up personal one-on-one chats where we can help you with your exact fantasy questions. You can send us pictures of your roster. You can send us pictures of your waiver pool. We can screen share. We can do all the things we need to do to help you make the playoffs and win a championship this year. So Connect Go, links are in the description, and we're here to help you win a championship. So the deep waivers we define by being available in 90% or more ESPN leagues. So no matter your league size, these guys are probably out there for you. Last week was running back heavy. This week I'm leaning on the wide receivers. We're going to start with Alec Pierce. 15 targets in the last 2 weeks, 9 in this Thursday night game against Denver, and Denver is actually good against wide receivers. Josh said these words in this show. You need to have patience with rookie wide receivers. They take time. He should not be available in this many leagues, and it's time to go out and get him. He is looking like he's at least the wide receiver 2 for Indianapolis. Josh already brought him up. Khalil Shakir. You don't put the genie back in the bottle. That's not how this works. Shakir was always going to take over this slot role, and Josh hit it on the head. Jamison Crowder's done for the year. That's a broken ankle. I don't see him coming back at any point this season. And Isaiah McKenzie got hurt at the wrong time, giving Khalil Shakir a chance to go out there and show what he can do. They're going to keep him out there if that's going to either mean more 4 wide receiver sets or Isaiah McKenzie finding the pine. Randall Cobb, I know it's weird to keep trying to decide who the Green Bay wide receiver 1 is, but 13 targets in a single game cannot be ignored. We know Aaron Rodgers trusts Randall Cobb. There was all the narrative about them loving on each other during the game. You need to chase volume when it comes to these wide receivers. And if this is what we can expect from Cobb, this is what you need to chase when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, wide receiver 1. At running back, I've talked about him, I'm pretty sure 3 out of 4 episodes, every damn waiver article. Dontrell Hilliard is a guy that needs to be rostered by at the very least every Derrick Henry manager. He should not be available in 90% of leagues. 14 targets and 3 receiving touchdowns this year. They are using him to give Henry a break on third down. They're throwing him the ball when he's on the field. He's already a decent RB4, and that doesn't count the insurance he brings to a Derrick Henry injury. If you have him on your bench and Derrick Henry gets hurt, this guy's worth his weight in gold. And he actually played pretty damn good when Henry was down last year. And finally, DJ Dallas. I love Kenneth Walker. We've spent the entire show talking about how great Kenneth Walker is. But Travis Homer's on IR right now. Rashad Penny is done for the season. I think Homer just went on IR this week, so we're talking 3 more weeks. The only active running backs on Seattle right now are Kenneth Walker and DJ Dallas, and they wanted to ease Kenneth Walker in. So I think at the very least, we're going to see DJ Dallas involved in the passing game, which was kind of a knock on Kenneth Walker early on in his career or early on coming out of college. So we don't quite know what we're going to get. Involvement in the passing game with a quarterback playing as well as Geno Smith. You want DJ Dallas, and he's available in every single league right now. There are not many leagues. 6 yards per carry and 7 yards per catch this season for DJ Dallas. So he is someone worth having on your team as the only other running back with the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, you know I love me some DJ Dallas.
I know you do. I was happy to be able to put him on this list for you.
Well, and as I mentioned, like after Penny got hurt, Ken Walker comes in, breaks off the 69-yard touchdown run. I think Dallas played 3 snaps after that. 2 of them were obvious passing downs.
Yep. So
and they did the same thing with Rashad Penny. That's why he hasn't seen a ton of pass volume in his career in Seattle. They don't typically throw to their RB1. They have the RB2 for that specific reason. Right now, that lies in Dallas's hands. So I love it. And a point that I want to make out really quick on Hilliard. Name me a Tennessee Titans pass catcher that's not Robert Woods. Like that.
We're waiting.
Yeah. Burks is on IR with the turf toe.
Yep.
You've got Nick Westbrook Keene, and I really can't even tell you anybody else.
Kyle Phillips had that one really good week and has done nothing since.
Yeah, it hasn't done anything since. So Hilliard's kind of become like a de facto option in this passing attack. So yeah, I'm with you. Like I have him stashed in some of our deep leagues.
Yep.
But yeah, Hilliard is 1,000% somebody that should be rostered.
Love it. Josh, you want to talk about the people they can cut to sign some of those guys?
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pour one out for Rashad Penny.
Yeah,
that one stings because.
And while this seems obvious, I want to throw out. I was telling Josh about this. I missed that he broke his leg yesterday, and I do this, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
So yes.
Well, and also too, you get some of these players that they're put on IR, and sometimes if you're not so into it, fantasy managers might see IR and say, oh, he'll come back in 4 weeks.
Just drop him on his. Yep.
Penny's done. Like there's no need to even stash him on IR. He is done. Broke his leg. That's a season-ending thing.
Yep.
I talked about it earlier. I'm done with Kenny Gainwell. I'm done. Like this is very much a Colts situation. Like with Nyheim Hines isn't really like a starting running back. Like when Jonathan Taylor goes down, it's kind of the next man up behind him, and that's Deion Jackson. That's not Nyheim Hines.
Same. Exactly.
So. And that's what the difference is. Gainwell is not Nyheim Hines. He cannot pass block. He is god awful as a pass blocker. So if something were to happen to Miles Sanders, that role goes to Boston Scott. And right now, Gainwell just outside of an occasional touchdown, there's really not a lot of value there at all because they're not using him much in the passing game. I've been hanging on to Sony Michel because I'm not a Josh Kelly fan, but I think it's pretty clear now. Joshua Kelly is the 1B behind Austin Ekeler. I think we can be done with Sony Michel at this point. And I know you mentioned these last two, Ryan, but Julio Jones, we've been talking about this for 4 weeks. Like
50% of leagues. Why is he still on a roster?
He's a name at this point. That's it. There's literally no value to be had here. And I'll let you talk about Josh Palmer because I think this one's very interesting.
So the biggest issue I have with Josh Palmer is we were all bought in after a couple of good games when Keenan Allen was missing. But then if you look at his last 2 games, and of course I get an error when I'm trying to look up his stats right now on fantasy data. But when you look at his last 2 games, I think it's like 4 fantasy points each game. And I can't bring those up right now because fantasy data hates me. But the fact of the matter is this. He's not seeing as many targets as we want, and we're going to get Keenan Allen back eventually. Does he still have moderate value as a wide receiver 3? Absolutely. But if we're looking at the guys I named above, with the exception of maybe Randall Cobb, you could call Palmer and Cobb kind of a coin flip, but anybody else up there, I would rather have them, running backs included, over Josh Palmer right now because he's not doing it when the opportunity is right in his face. Why are we expecting him to do it when it gets worse, when Keenan Allen comes back and another person who's not there, and Palmer is playing ahead of him, but Jalen Guyton's on IR right now, and Jalen Guyton's going to eventually come back, and that's going to be a headache for Palmer. He's going to have very much boom or bust weeks, but he is not hitting in the weeks he's supposed to hit, so I'm done worrying about having Josh Palmer on our roster.
That's fair. Yeah, and you also have to account for targets going to Austin Ekeler, targets going for Gerald Everett.
Yep.
Like
Josh Kelly.
Make the argument. Yeah, Josh Kelly. Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that Palmer's 5th in this passing attack. Like, I understand it's a high volume passing attack, but there's very little value with that. Unless you're like in 14, 16 team leagues.
3 for 24 last week on 6 targets. And then the week before that, it was like even worse if I remember. Yeah. 1 catch for 25 yards in week 4. So, and these are without Keenan Allen. Yeesh. All right. We kind of touched on this, Josh, when we said we wouldn't trade for him, but is it time to bench Najee Harris?
I mean, for me, it really just depends on your other options, but yeah, I think you can make the case that Najee isn't a must start anymore.
It is not a start your stud situation. That's exactly what I was going to say, Josh. It's right. Like, don't feel bad. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm making that decision. Like Josh even brought up, Josh benched his fucking fantasy god, Deontay Johnson, this week for Ramondre Stevenson. The Pittsburgh offense presents issues for fantasy managers right now. We don't know who to start. And Najee Harris is probably the worst benefactor of all that because the poor offensive line play and the poor offensive scheming puts him in a bad situation every single game. And unless he breaks a long run, which is not his game, it's going to be a long day for Najee Harris. So.
Yeah, because, I mean, I will say kudos to Pickett. Did have a lot of passing yards. They were down all game. So it's hardly shocking to me in that perspective. But I mean, if they're going to be losing a lot of games because their defense can't stop the run, they don't, without TJ Watt, they're not bringing the same type of pressure. Mm-hmm. Their corners are suspect. Yes. Like, there's a lot that's not great with Pittsburgh right now. Like, they're staring in the face of a top 5 draft pick. Like, that's how bad they are right now. And then that's going to come into question. Did we make the wrong pick with Pickett? Which I don't think they did. I'm not the biggest Pickett fan. And I think there's definitely some really good QB options here, but you spend a first round pick on them. Let's get an offensive line in front of them.
I was just going to say they're in an interesting situation if they end up with a top 5 pick because most of the top 5 is going to be going quarterback, and that could let
they can pivot
better
and
offensive
go with
linemen
the offensive
fall.
line or defensive players, something, because they've been spending so many the last couple drafts. Like they've been getting all these offensive pieces, guys like George Pickens, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth. And just completely ignoring the offensive line when for the longest time they had a wall in front of Big Ben. They need to get back to that because otherwise they're going to waste a first-round investment in Pickett.
Yeah, absolutely. We touched a little bit on the T. Higgins injury. Basically, McSweet, he re-aggravated. I'm seeing he's going to already be questionable for week 6. Tyreek, I haven't heard a ton about at this point.
He was iffy going into this game. He ended up played through it for the most part. Probably ended up sitting simply because the game was so far out of hand and there was a third string quarterback. So I wouldn't worry too much about that long term. The biggest thing with Tyreek is just going to be who's at quarterback.
Yep. Yeah, if it's Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Skylar Thompson, then yeah, I think it's safe to worry and temper expectations. T. Higgins, again, like I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor. I'm not going to pretend to know all the nuances of an ankle injury and all of those different types of things. But it's just one of those you have to monitor practice time. Like if he misses Wednesday practice, don't freak out. A lot of veterans miss Wednesdays. If he misses Thursday, it's on your radar. If he misses Friday or is limited on Friday, be mindful because you may end up running into a situation similar to what you saw this week, where he tries to give it a go, re-aggravates it, and then doesn't get you any fantasy.
And if they're not going to use him against Baltimore, they're not going to risk him against somebody else. They needed him last night, and they still would not risk him. Josh, outro for the people and give your prediction for the Monday night game.
Prediction for Monday night, I need Travis Kelce to score over 30 fantasy points. That's what I need. So I need a shootout tonight. But I will say, I'm excited for the Raiders simply because they get Renfro back, Waller's playing. You will see their full offense in effect. And this is what we want to see from Las Vegas. We want to see Devontae Adams and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfro. And Josh Jacobs has looked good. And they've given him the carries to look good. And he's doing it. He's going into this weekend, he was RB7. Remember, somebody wrote an article about him being the top RB1. Just throwing that out there. Oh, who am I pointing at? Oh, yeah, me. Yeah, I think the Chiefs ultimately end up winning, but I want to see if there's a wide receiver that actually steps up for Kansas City, because if not, Travis Kelce is going to see blanket coverage the entire game. Yeah. Not saying that they have the tools to blanket him and shut him down, but this game is it's going to be a shootout and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I don't think you're going to have a very similar game to what we saw on Thursday. I'll just throw that out there.
I don't quite know what the line is. I'm struggling to find it right now, but I would take the over in Kansas City in this game for sure. That's just how I would play it. We're going to knock out JAC's question real quick. I would just tell all of you, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. We are very, very close to giving away an autographed Cortland Sutton jersey. And eventually Russell Wilson's going to get his shit together and throw the ball to Cortland Sutton more. And it's going to be worth a lot more than what it's worth right now. So you still want that jersey. We have articles dropping all the time, but way more importantly, this is a big trade week with bye weeks coming up, and our own Zach Berger just dropped an article today with trade targets and guys he's ready to move on from, with great data on who he would give up and who he would target. So I highly recommend checking that article out. We'll have shows out just about every day this week. We'll have articles out just about every day this week. You need to be following Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL on all of the socials, but far more importantly, as I said, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Josh, let's end it with our buddy JAC's question.
Love it. And it's funny you mentioned Zach's article because he recommends selling high on Hollywood Brown. Here's the one thing that I've noticed, and I feel like, savvy football people will notice this too. Cliff Kingsbury does not change his offense at all. The wide receiver runs exactly what they run. It does not matter who goes into that situation. They're playing Hollywood Brown in the exact same role that they played DeAndre Hopkins. Now, you tell me if those two wide receivers couldn't be any more different.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, it's going to be very interesting to see where they move these pieces because AJ Green is on the outside opposite Hollywood Brown. So that tells me that Green's going to take a step back. And one
Green's
of those
been missing games with
playing.
injury right now too.
Yeah, well, he played this week against Philly, but does D-Hop now go back into the wide receiver 1 role, which is better suited for him? And then they use Hollywood Brown in more of that wide receiver 2 where they can actually move him and do a lot more pieces to utilize his speed. I'm fine selling high on Brown simply because there's so much unknown. And I would much rather let somebody else go through the headaches because you're probably going to have a 2 or 3 game stretch where Hopkins is working his way back and Brown starts getting forgotten about.
Yeah, you can probably get another wide receiver and running back out of him right now just because his numbers have been off the charts for 3 consecutive weeks right now. Give me 2 seconds and I'll drop that link in the description real quick or in the chat. Yeah. But like I said, I agree. I'm a sell high at this point as well. Just out of the fact that we need to understand that this offense is going to change. And we bitched about it last year when it comes to this offense with DeAndre Hopkins. They were just spreading the ball around entirely too much to everybody. And now you have 2 really good wide receivers and a really good Zach Ertz. They're going to continue to spread that ball around. So we obviously want to take advantage of a very big sell high time on Marquise Brown, and I would also look to make that trade, but I would want a lot back. Remember, it's sell high. Don't just get rid of him to get rid of him.
Exactly.
So, all right, guys. Well, we very much appreciate
all good getting a good running back and maybe an upside wide receiver. So
exactly. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We appreciate those questions. Never forget your start sit questions. We have a show on Saturdays from 11 to noon that is only about your start sit questions. We call it start sit different day because we're the only one doing it on a Saturday morning. So if you guys are up early in the morning, and it's not really that early, but if you're up, make sure you tune in because we don't do a show sheet for that show. We need your questions. So please tune in for that show. We'll be live again on Wednesday for our No Punt Intended show. We appreciate every one of you. Hope you have a great day. Chill the fuck out.